All praise, glory, and honor is most certainly due to the Most High, the God of the patriarch Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and peace to you in the name of Jesus. This is your brother Elisha Israel of the household of faith. I count it truly a blessing each and every single time that I can come before to preach the word of God, and never do I count it as a light thing to do so. All right, brothers and sisters, I want to come on a little late, but I did want to answer some questions from Sister Stella, Brother Ricky, and Brother Trapmove. Okay, so the first one is from Stella. It says, she has a question. Is now Jesus Christ the mediator? You can't go to God unless you go through Jesus to Christ. Can you talk about this to get better understanding? Okay, so first off, we want to know what a mediator is. Okay, a mediator is like a go-between. Okay, a person or someone who attempts to make people involved in a conflict come to an agreement. All right, so the agreement is the covenant. Now, how do you get the conflict that we have with the Father is sin. All have sinned and come short of the glory of God, right? So how is that relationship reconciled? Well, the reconciliation comes from the atonement that was made. The atonement is Christ, okay? And he is the mediator between God and man, okay? Let's go to First Timothy. Just so we understand what a mediator is. Let's find out what it says about Christ. Because the question is, you can't go to God unless you go through Jesus Christ. This is First Timothy 2 and verse 15. Give me 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Did I get the wrong? Let me see. One moment. I'm looking at the wrong thing. That's the problem. Oh, I'm sorry. 2 Timothy 2 and 5. Or 1 Timothy 2 and 5. 1 Timothy 2 and 5 says, for there is one God and one mediator between God and men, that man, Jesus, or Christ Jesus. Okay, so that's cut and dry. Okay, let's go to Hebrews and see what the author of Hebrews says about it. Hebrews the 9th, let's see. Hebrews the 9th chapter and verse 15. Hebrews the 9th chapter and verse 15. It says here that, and for this cause, he, talking about Jesus, is the mediator of the New Testament. Okay, so again, that agreement between God and man is the covenant or the testament, right? And one who mediates that is Christ. It says again, for this cause, he is the mediator of the New Testament, that by means of death, for the redemption of the transgressions that were under the first testament, they which are called mighty receive the promise of eternal inheritance. See, you need a go-between. You need a go-between. Who is the go-between? Is none other than Jesus Christ. You can't get to God but by him. You talking about you gonna go, how you gonna, what you gonna, like, if you think about it, he set up this plan, right, for man to be saved. He said, believe on my son. He's the atonement. He is the one sitting on the right hand of the Father making intercession for man. Matter of fact, let's just read that. That is in sticking in Hebrews, I want to say 7. Okay. Might be 7 or 8. Give me one moment. Yeah, let me find it. Give me 1 second. 1 second. One moment, because he's the one you have to go through. Okay, and he is the one that's sitting on the right hand making intercession. He's the one whose name you have to pray in when you pray you pray to the Father in his name. Actually, it's Romans 8. I think I said Hebrews, Romans 8, the 34th verse. Romans 8. Okay, so it says here, verse 34, Romans 8 and 34, who is he that condemneth? It is Christ that died, yea, rather that is risen again, who is even at the right hand of God, who also maketh intercession for us. Yeah, it is also in Hebrews 7. Hebrews 7 and verse 25 says, wherefore he is able also to save them to the uttermost that come unto God by him. Right? Who is the him? Jesus. See, because he's the high priest. Okay? He's the go-between. He's standing in the gap. He's the go-between God and man. He's in that spot. So say, wherefore he is able also to save them to the uttermost that come unto God by him, seeing he ever liveth to make intercession for us. Okay? So he's the one that's making intercession. He's the one that mediates the new covenant. And even he is, okay, so when you see the priests that did it of old time, they went into a tabernacle and did it, right? So Christ, that all was a pattern. All those things were a pattern. Even when you look at the animals, that was a shadow. When you look at the patterns of the tabernacle, listen, in that most holy place, that represents the throne of God. That's what he has done with blood, only not with the blood of bulls and goats, with his own blood. Okay? Peace to you, Brother Philip. So it says in Hebrews 9 and 24, said, for Christ is not entered into the holy places made with hands. He didn't go in some tabernacle. He didn't go in some temple. It says, which are figures of the true, but into heaven itself, now to appear in the presence of God. Then it says, for us, because he's making intercession. Okay, so he's making intercession, and he's the mediator. He's the go-between. Last place on this, Hebrews, the 12th chapter. I want to pick it up at verse 24. Hebrews 12 and verse 24. It says, unto Jesus, the mediator of the new covenant, and to the blood of sprinkling that speaketh better things than that of Abel. So again, mediator. So is he the mediator? Absolutely. Okay. And again, a mediator is a person that basically attempts to make two parties that are in conflict, make them to come together in agreement. He as a go-between, standing in the middle. He is our way to the Father. You can't get there but by him. That is correct. Okay. And the Catholics tell you, that some man is the go-between. You go in some confessional booth and say Father, which you're not supposed to be calling that man Father anyway. Call no man Father. But then you calling him Father, and you talking about you have sin, and you confess to him like he your go-between. No, that man's not talking. That sinner, especially them. You might be talking to a pedophile. You talking to one of these priests. As much molestation is going on in that wretched institution called the Catholic Church. But nevertheless, you're not supposed to go to some man. You go to God, but through Jesus. You pray to the Father in Jesus' name. That's how that works. He is the mediator of the new covenant. All right. So hopefully that answers your question, sis. All right. The next one is his brother Rick. It says Hebrews are teaching that Leviathan is some type of Godzilla-like creature that God will turn loose in the end times. Can you please address this? Okay, let me tell you something. They don't know what they're talking about. All right, next question. No, I'll read a little bit about Leviathan because people don't know what Leviathan is. Right? They don't know if it's a dinosaur. They don't know if it's a whale there because it's some untamed huge creature. But there's more than one way to look at this. Let's go so here we read about Leviathan in Job 41 and verse 1. It says here in Job 41 because he's talking about God is talking about, like, man, do you know who I am? Basically, that's what he's saying to him. So he says, he asked him, canst thou draw out Leviathan with a hook, or his tongue with the cord which thou lettest down? Now let's go to just to see what Leviathan. I want to say the Strong's number is 3882, but let me look for sure. Yeah, it is. Leviathan. Leviathan, it says here, a wreathed animal, a serpent, especially the crocodile or some other large sea monster, figuratively the constellation of the dragon, also as a symbol of Babylon, Leviathan mourning. Okay, so they've said, people say various things about it, but it never talks about some Leviathan, like Thomas Hobbes or something, like, the government being Leviathan. It doesn't talk. God is not telling you, oh, praise God, sister. God is not telling you that he's going to release some Leviathan on you. I'm going to show you what he's going to release. Okay. But this is Job 41. We're still in verse 41 or chapter 41. And it describes him. Okay. He says in verse 10, none is so fierce that dare stir him up. Who hath prevented me that I should repay him whatsoever is under the whole heaven is mine. Then he talks about, let's see. Further talk about this Leviathan. He says, now this is where it get kind of, he says, his verse 15, his scales are his pride shut up together as with a closed seal. So it seems like he's talking about a literal, some kind of creature. They don't know what the creature is. But then he goes on to say, in verse 31, he maketh the deep to boil like a pot. He maketh the sea like a point of ointment. He maketh a path to shine after him. One would think the deep to be hoary. Upon earth there is none his like, who is made without fear. And that he beholdeth all high things. He is a king over all the children of pride. Now that right there, when you talk about pride, so some would even say, well, this is referring to Satan. Okay, because they say he got kicked out of heaven because of pride, right? And that's his MO. But let's go to Isaiah, the 27th chapter. I think it's Isaiah 27:1. Because here we see you see Leviathan again. And it says here, in that day the Lord with his sword, great and strong sword, shall punish Leviathan, the piercing serpent, even Leviathan, that crooked serpent, and he shall slay the dragon that is in the sea. Okay. So now people look at this and say, what a serpent is referring to Satan. Some people say, well, it's referring to some sea creature. Let me tell you what it's not referring to. It is not referring to what these Negroes are talking about. It's not referring to that. Okay. I tell you, man, a lot of brothers, man, they don't know. You see a lot of them do have a lot of understanding, but some of them, man, they just come up with some stuff that just be out the box. Let me show you what's going to be unleashed on man. Let's go to Joel. So it says here, for behold, in those days and in that time when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations and will to the valley of Jehoshaphat and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage, whom they have scattered among the nations, a part of my land. So now that's what the Lord's going to do when he returns. So all the tribes of the earth shall mourn in that time. Let's go to the book of Revelation. See, he's going to unleash himself upon this man. Matter of fact, before we go there, let's go to Isaiah, the 66th chapter. I say 66, 60. Hold on one second. There's a couple places we can go. Actually, yeah, let's just read this here. Actually, let's go to the 13th chapter. Isaiah 13. Isaiah 13. And we want to pick it up at verse 9. Because you read in Matthew 24, as well as in Mark, where when the Lord comes back, you read it in Isaiah and other places, and you read it in Joel, you read it in Revelation, what's going to happen in the heavens, the stars, and what's going to happen to the moon, what's going to happen to the sun, right? He's going to roll back heaven like a scroll. That sign, it's happening under the sixth seal. That's telling you what's going to take place at his return. And what's going to happen is Armageddon. Somebody worried about some sea creature, or he unleashing something on the earth. No, he unleashing himself when it's all said and done. Now, prior to that, you're going to have great tribulation. But when, and that's going to be the worst time up until that point man has ever seen. And he's going to come back and he's going to make war with man. That's the real unleashing. Because he's coming back in flaming fire, taking vengeance on them that know not God and that obey not his gospel. That's what people need to worry about. They ain't thinking about his coming, right? I heard somebody today talking about, they was mocking the Lord. It was a game. They say, yeah, people always talking about, I forgot the context of it, but it was something like, people always talking about, some people you can't never find, like Jesus, right? That don't exist, But this is Isaiah the 13th chapter. They're going to find out soon enough. Isaiah the 13th chapter, verse 9, it said, behold, the Lord cometh. The day of the Lord cometh, cruel, both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate. And he shall destroy the sinners thereof out of it. For the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. And I will punish the world for their evil and the wicked for their iniquity. And I will cause the arrogancy of the proud to cease and will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible. See, that's what's going to happen when he returns. Revelation, the 19th chapter. Revelation, the 19th chapter, we want to pick it up, I think, in verse 11. Because he says here, and in verse 11, John writes, Revelation 19 and 11, and I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and righteous is he doth judge and make war. He's making war with man. He's making war with man, and he's coming back with armies. It says in verse 13, and he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. He's coming back with an army. Habakkuk talks about this army, this invasion with his troops. He said, Lord, in wrath, remember mercy. Okay? He said his belly trembled when he thought about it. But now, so that's what's going to be released. That's what's going to be released. So you got great tribulation, right? When you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in a holy place, whoso read it, let him understand. Why? Because it's going to be great tribulation. Okay? Now, understand, when he gave this prophecy, he told him the building of the temple. They showed him the buildings of the temple, right? And he said, listen, it's going to be a time where there's not going to be one stone left upon another that's not thrown down. All this is going to be destroyed. You ain't going to have no way in the wall. That's garbage. All this is going to be destroyed. And when you read the historical records of contemporaries of the time, they say, hey, there was no temple there. So what's that way in the wall? But nevertheless, you're going to have, like they had that invasion, you're going to have trouble in that place. You're going to have this man of sin, the son of perdition. This man's going to stand in the temple of God like as he is God, right? That's what Paul tells you. And so that's going to be the start of great tribulation. Okay, this man of sin who's going to be getting power that the saints that don't make it to the place of safety for 3.5 years. So now you could say it was going to be unleashed, right? There's no Leviathan, no Godzilla-like creature coming. These Negroes lost their mind. Godzilla? That's a movie? Godzilla-like creature coming. You sound crazy. But anyway, that's gonna be occurring during the Great Tribulation. And then at the time after the Great Tribulation, which is 3.5 years, not 7, the Lord's gonna come back immediately, because it tells you in Matthew 24 and 29, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be dark and the moon shall not give a light. The stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. So he's coming back immediately after the Great Tribulation. And then it tells you all the tribes of the earth shall mourn. Why are they mourning? Because again, he's coming back in flaming fire. They're going to say, hide us from the wrath. They're going to let the rocks fall on us and hide us from the wrath of the Lamb. That's what's going to be unleashed. He's going to be unleashed. You're going to have turmoil, and you're going to have trouble leading up in these end times. The Bible tells you what's going to happen in the end times. Jesus tells you, he says, wars, rumors of wars, kingdom going to rise against kingdom. You're going to have false prophets. You're going to have pestilence, earthquake, and disease. You're going to have persecution. That's what you was going to have, right? You had persecution when he commissioned them to go out into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. They were persecuted. Look at the travels of Paul through Antioch, Lystra, and Iconium. Was it Iconium, I think? Yeah, all these places he went and how he was persecuted. Look how Peter was in prison, beaten. They were persecuted. The early people they were calling Christians as an epithet, they were being persecuted. Okay? That type of persecution is coming again. You ain't gonna be worried about what Big Mama say about you at the family reunion. You're gonna be worried about something else. Them Big Mama and them turning you in. So that's what's happening. The Bible's not telling you that some literal Godzilla-like creatures coming up out of somewhere. That's even climbing buildings, man. Anyway. So, brother, I hope that answers your question. Now, the next question is from Trapmove. He said, hey, brother, Elisha, what you think about some hard times people facing? Is it God cause or something else? Because I think he said, okay, is this God causing this turmoil and problems, or is it something else? Then he said, I think black people serve the worst time in life. Hope you see this question. Okay, so you want to go to let's go to the beginning of human beings' trouble. Let's go to Genesis, the 3rd chapter. See, trouble, brothers and sisters, tragedy, heartache, and pain and suffering is the human condition. That's the human condition. This life is full of suffering. If you read literature, brothers and sisters, literature tells you this. Various themes in the greatest works of literature oftentimes deal with some form of human suffering, some form of loss, some form of pain, some type of tragedy. That's what it's dealing with. When you look at what ultimately the faith and what was given and how you're supposed to operate and what he's telling you to do, he's telling you to pick up your cross and follow me. If a cross ain't suffering, what is it? Paul tell you all that live godly in Christ Jesus shall suffer persecution, right? Cain was killed. Cain killed his brother Abel, right? So now let's look at in general. So that's the suffering of the righteous. But let's look at suffering in general. Because again, in general, like I said, that's the human condition. This is Genesis, the 3rd chapter. I want to pick it up in verse 17. Genesis the 3rd chapter in verse 17. So when Adam and Eve sinned against God, punishment came. It says, unto Adam, he said, because thou hast hearkened to the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, thou shalt not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for thy sake. Right? So now you got trouble entering into the world for man. He said, you're cursed. He says, thou shalt not, well, it says, cursed is the ground for thy sake. In sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. So you're going to have to struggle and toil and work just to eat. And you know that's what it is, right? People always say it's hard, like brother, it's hard out here. You struggle just to get a bite to eat. You be at the store buying stuff, thinking about what other bills you got to pay, right? After you done work all day long on a job you hate, with a boss that's giving you hell. You got kids you got to deal with. You have all types of things you have to deal with. People, as you get older and your parents around, they get ill. So now you got to deal with their illness. You got children, you got to deal with them. You got to deal with life. Then you try to deal with your own self. So all types of things going on. Then you got tragedy, right? You got illness. You got accidents that take place. Unexpected death, expected death, loss. So it says, in the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread till thou return unto the ground. Death, brothers and sisters. You talk about trouble. You got trouble on your way to the grave. And then those that love you gonna mourn, and you know what? They gonna die. That's a terrible condition. And that's what Jesus came to get us out of. But nevertheless, that's a terrible condition. That is the human condition. This is what the philosophers, this is what even those who deal in literature, the writers, the that's what they were dealing with a lot of times, is the human condition and death. What it actually means to be human. That's what they're dealing with. When you look at religion, that's what it's about. Even the various religions. That's what it ultimately, that's one of the major things that it's about. How do you deal with the fact that you're going to die? That's a hell of a thing when you really think about it. How do you deal, how you are going to go back to the dust? How do you deal with that? Right? So it says, in the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread till thou returnest to the ground, for out of it wast thou taken, for dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return. So he says, what you think of, is it God doing it? Well, when man sinned against God, he opened the door to suffering. He opened the door to tragedy. He opened the door to loss. He opened the door to sickness, and he opened the door unto death. That's the ultimate. Let's go to Job, the 14th chapter, because you say, as God, we open the door for it. And here Job tells he's in full of trouble. So not only do you have trouble in your life, you are here, it's a brief life. You look up and it's halfway over. You blink again, and you in the twilight of your life. You in the winter of life. So he said, man that is born of a woman is a few days and full of trouble. Think about all the things that have happened unto you. You're born into a situation. You come from the womb. You have no control over who your parents are. You have no control over your environment. You are just born into a situation as totally vulnerable, right? That's if your mother don't kill you in the womb. You see what kind of world we're living in? Where the most vulnerable can be destroyed in the womb, head crushed and vacuumed out of the womb. I know that sounds harsh, but that's the harshness of life. That's what you're being born into. You're being born into a situation with a bunch of people who will do that. You born into, you have no control over who your parents are, have no control over your environment. You're covered in blood, totally vulnerable, and it's trouble all around you. It's trouble in the hospital that you're born in. People dying all around that hospital. Malpractice going on all around that hospital. Then you go out into the world, it's a cold world. People are trying to take advantage of you. Where you got to work and strive. Everything you get, you're going to have to work for it. Everything you work for, you're not getting. And you're going to have tragedy all throughout your life. You're going to live a little while before you find somebody that you love die. Going to live a little bit longer, some more people going to die. You're going to have trouble. You're going to have people get killed around you. People have accidents around you. Sickness, or you're going to get sick. And then what's going to happen to you? You're going to die. Man that is born of a woman is a few days and full of trouble. That's just what it is. That's just what it is. Let's go to Ecclesiastes, because Solomon said it. Ecclesiastes, the 2nd chapter, we want to pick it up at verse 23. I'm going to pick it up at verse, I'm going to just pick it up at verse 18. It said, yeah, I hated all my labor which I had taken under the sun, because I should leave it unto the man that shall be after me. And that's something. All the work that you could do, everything, no matter what you do, you're a man, you're going to work. And let's say you built something great and you made your mark on this earth, you're going to die and leave it to somebody else. A foolish son or somebody else is going to take it. And you just like you were never here. Like I watched this movie the other day, and the king, he was a capable king. He was real capable. He was a king of England. And his son, he didn't trust his son to do what was right. His son, even though his son was older, his son just wasn't as capable as he was. And he wasn't, the old man knew what he was doing. The son was kind of foolish. And so, but they was going to march into Scotland and take the land back because it was a rebellion. And then the king, he marched with the soldiers. He got sick, and now he on his deathbed on the march. They put him in a tent in the bed. He told him, I want you to boil my body and take me everywhere until this rebellion is put down, until Scotland is taken back. He said, you have my word? I want your word. He said, I swear to you, Father. And then, as soon as he said that, he died. And then he said, man, bury him. The son said, man, put him in the ground, bury him right here. And then one of the counselors or the advisors was like, don't you think we should honor his wishes? And the son looked back at the advisor and said, I think you better honor my wishes. He bowed his head and did it. See, all that stuff he had built, that kingdom that he had built, listen, it's his now. And what he do? He went out there and lost Scotland. He went out there and lost the battle. Lost Scotland. So eventually, the one that beat him, his descendants ended up taking ruling hundreds of years later, ended up ruling Scotland and England simultaneously. See, so you could build something, you could build a kingdom. People bow down to you, taking oaths to you, and you could lose it. So it says, and who knoweth whether he shall be a wise man or a fool? Yet shall he have rule over all my labor wherein I have labored, and wherein I have showed myself wise under the sun. This is also vanity. See, so when Solomon really thought about it, he said, man, all these things I'm building, all the work that I'm doing, I'm going to leave it to somebody that's going to be a fool. Or I don't know if he's going to be a fool. He said, therefore I went about to cause my heart to despair of all the labor which I took under the sun. For there is a man whose labor is in wisdom and in knowledge and in equity, yet to a man that hath not labored therein shall he leave it for his portion. This also is vanity and a great evil. For what hath man of all his labor and of the vexation of his spirit, of his heart, wherein he hath labored under the sun? Then he says something, for all his days are sorrows. Man, we just read in Job, right? We read in Job, the 14th chapter, that man that is born is a few days and full of trouble. Here we say, for all his days are sorrows, and his travail grief. Yea, his heart taketh not rest in the night. This is also vanity. You're going to have trouble in this life, no matter who you are. 1 Corinthians, the 10th chapter. 1 Corinthians, the 10th chapter and verse 13. 1 Corinthians, the 10th chapter and verse 13. 1 Corinthians, the 10th chapter, verse 13, it reads, now we should understand in this situation, in this condition, as believers, we should still hold on to our faith because he can deliver us out of all trouble. This is 1 Corinthians, the 10th chapter, verse 13. He says, there have no temptation taken you but such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that ye are able, but will with temptation also make a way to escape that ye may be able to bear it. So there's going to be situations, there's going to be trials and tribulations that are going to test your faith. See, it's not just see, even that, I've seen that, where people get mad that somebody died and they got a problem with God as if death isn't everybody's portion. People get, I'm just upset with God, or I can't go on. Why? Because you lost somebody? Man, you better keep it moving. I love this person. Now they're gone. Yeah, that's life. I know that sounds real harsh, but that's not comforting, but that is what it is. And if you have faith, you understand that God can deliver even from death. But it's not about you not having any trouble. It's not about you not having any pain. And if you're going to come by this way, you certainly going to have to deal with some things. 1 Peter, the 5th chapter. 1 Peter, the 5th chapter, we're going to pick it up at verse 7. 1 Peter 5 and verse 7. Actually, I'm going to pick it up at verse 6. He said, humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time, casting all your care upon him, for he careth for you. See, one thing about it is he can deliver you out of the situations that you're in. That's what he can do. He can deliver you from all the situations that you are in. All right. Let's go to one other place. I'm not going to go in depth with this point because you talked about you feel like black people. And when you say black, I'm assuming that you're talking about Israel, who was the black people that have been scattered into slavery all over the earth. You say, man, it seems like we catch it worse. Well, we do. Why? Because you read about the curses in Deuteronomy 28, the 28th chapter. I'm not going to read all that. You read it on your own. He talked about the blessings that would take place from 1 to about 15, and then 16 to 68, curse, 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 curse. We've experienced all that. Okay? Now I want to read some here. Let's just put this in perspective. Okay? This is Amos, the 3rd chapter and verse 1. Here the prophet writes, "Hear this word that the Lord has done against you, O children of Israel." Because you're talking about we catching it. He said, listen to what he said, against the whole family which I brought the land out of, of the whole. I'm going to start over. Hear this word that the Lord has spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up from the land of Egypt, saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. Then he says something. Therefore, I will punish you for all your iniquities. And that's what's happening to us. So when you look at our situation, when you say, man, what's the problem? The problem is disobedience unto God. See, he even told you the end of that was going to be captivity. So that's how we ended up as slaves. He said, I'm going to put you on slave ships. And then you're going to be sold as bond men and bond women. See, the troubles, we are still in these lands in which we were taken captive unto this day. Still trying to figure out who we're going to vote for. Right? So that's why we're in the condition we in. And human suffering is just that. It's a human thing. It's a human thing that came into the world. The suffering that we experience, right, came into the world ultimately from that suffering that leads to death because of sin. Okay? So with that, brothers and sisters, like the video if you've been edified. Subscribe if you haven't done so. We meet every Sabbath, which is Saturday at 5925 West 25th Avenue in Gary, Indiana, at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. This week, brothers and sisters, on Friday at 6 p.m., we are having a baptism. And that'll be at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you're not in our area, we live stream at the Israel Teach YouTube channel, as well as at www.israelteach.org. If you've been edified through the ministry, there you can donate to the ministry. 100% of the proceeds goes toward the work of the ministry, not in our pockets. And with that, brothers and sisters, it's always my prayer that you were edified.